First things first, right? Great. Okay, Devin, you're in charge, really, honest.
Thank you. All right. So, hello, everyone. I really appreciate you all coming to this Zoom session. This is for a homework assignment that I have to do for a class that's required for this transfer I'm doing to University of, or Concordia, Wisconsin, from Concordia, Portland. And in this class, a lot of the topics have to do with human resource development, human resource management, Six Sigma, lean system, and like change management kind of topics. Yeah, I thought Chrissy would like that. And so the assignment today has to do with discussing the concept of change. And given the state of the world in which we all are currently living, the topic I think seems pertinent, I think would be the right word for it. And FYI, I am recording this for a homework assignment, so you are being recorded at all times. Be appropriate, because this will be submitted for an assignment, just saying. First, let's go ahead and just do formal introductions for each other. If you just want to say who you are and how you know me, that'd be great. Let's start with Matt.
Hi, everyone. I'm Matt Goff, and I am in the doctorate program with Devin. In fact, he and I are neck and neck and at the same place in our process. So I've been stuck with, I've been with Devin pretty much throughout the whole, almost every class, I think, through the whole program.
Yep. Thank you, Matt. Let's go with over here to Eric.
My name is Eric Borland, and Devin is my son. So he's already seen most, or at least been around most of the changes I've made in my life. So that'll be interesting.
And let's go down to Bonnie.
Hi, I'm Bonnie. I've known Devin for, like 15 years. And I do work with Oregon Recovers. So that's how Miles and I met. I currently work in HR for the city of Eugene, and in the fall I will be starting my master's in social work with Portland State.
Yay. Okay, and then over here to admin.
That would be me. My name is Chris, and I am Devin's aunt. A little bit about me. I am a risk management consultant, and I also work with survivors of domestic violence and human trafficking.
Excellent. Good work. And then last but not least, Miles.
Yeah, my name is Miles. I work for Transition Projects and Homeless Services. I advocate for drug policy changes and increased access to treatment for people with substance use issues with Oregon Recovers, and I'm a student in the School of Social Work at Portland State University. And Devin is a guy that I met at karaoke a few years ago. And then after, a little while after that, we got married.
Yes, exactly. That sums up our relationship. Perfect. All right. All right. So what we're going to do is have just a little 20-30-minute discussion. And what we're going to be talking about today is about the word change. And so what we're going to start with is, when I say the word change, I'd like for each of you to tell me what comes to mind, your first initial thoughts, reaction, just to that word change. Let's start with Eric.
Okay. Change, we are creatures of habit, typically. And the older we get, probably more so, unless we work on it otherwise. So change, if it's a knee-jerk reaction, can always go in the wrong direction because you're just wanting something different, not necessarily better. It depends how much awareness you have about where your situation is. Change coming from a place of balance can be a wonderful thing, even if it's scary.
Okay, great. And let's next go to Chris.
First word that comes to my mind is transformation. And as Eric said, sometimes that's scary. Those unknowns, you don't know what necessarily the outcome is going to be. And as creatures of habit, we like to know things. But it has just been my experience in life. I've learned not to be afraid of it, that often, though painful, it's exciting and wonderful.
Excellent. Thank you. Let's go with Matt.
So for me, I like to think that change is an opportunity for improvement. I used to be scared of it early in life, and set in my ways. And as I've become more educated and older, as it were, and seeing so much change, I've realized that being scared of it isn't a good thing. So now I basically try to look at it as, okay, what type of opportunity can we make out of this change, whether it's bad or good? How can we improve from it? So,
Excellent. Okay. Bonnie.
When I hear the word change, I think of my job, because we just went through a huge reorganization in my division where we merged two previously separate divisions and everyone's job description changed. And I applied for a new position and I got that new position. And then after I accepted it, they switched it out from under me and they were like, oh, actually, you're going to be doing this completely different job that you did not apply for. But it has turned out okay. And it has left me with some opportunities that I never even knew that I wanted. So
Okay. That's
hard, but it's good.
Yeah. Jeez. All right. And then last but not least, again, Miles.
When I think of change, I think of my leg, because on my leg I've got Shiva and the Phoenix, which are both, if you think about it, symbolic of change. The Phoenix, dying and being birthed from the ashes, and Shiva, which is the god of destruction and creation in Hindu mythology. And I think that's really interesting to think of change in that way, as something that is both destruction and creation, destroying what came before to create something new. And no matter what that change is, it is taking what used to be and turning it into what's now. And there's good in both sides to each of them. There's been this change recently in the world, and yes, it's terrifying, but also it's showing us in so many ways, the things that are important to us. And it's really important to look at change, I think, in a critical and almost neutral way, to just see it as, their benefits and detriments to each of these things. But this is what we're moving into, it's more balanced.
Yeah. Thank you. So, just to summarize, it seems like a lot of the common themes about transformation, both positive and negative aspects of change, scary, but like an adventure, in that no matter what, it's inevitable, but there's good and bad to it, essentially. And that if you can find balance in it within your life, that it can be a good thing, really. It's kind of if I was to summarize some of those key concepts that I heard. So another question we have to answer is why do you think you reacted the way you did when you first heard that word? Like, what brought you to that concept of change in your head when I first said that word and asked you what it meant to you? So with that question, I'm going to start this time with Miles.
I feel like I just talked. Well, I sat for many painful hours having symbols of change tattooed onto my legs. So that's not a thing that you forget. I think that the reason, the first thing that came to my mind was Shiva. The first thing that came to my mind was just that change is two acts, the destruction of what was before to create what is. And, you know, it's something I've been thinking a lot of lately because of the crisis that we're going through. And I mean, God, maybe this is something that's with us now forever. And there's a lot of things that are really going to suck about that. But also there's a lot of things that I never really appreciated before this happened that I've learned to appreciate now. And so, you know, there's the world the way that it was and the world the way that it is, and there's good and bad things about both of them. And so when I think about change, that is what comes up to mind is, you know, this concept that change is destruction and creation.
Thank you. I really like that. Thank you. Let's go with Chris next on that question of why did you think of what you thought of?
Just before I jumped on this call late, I was watching the movie Cry Freedom, which is about apartheid and what happened to bring about change in that country. And it's a shocking movie. But my partner Horace and I were just kind of struck with the parallels between what was happening then in South Africa and what's happening here in America, with all that we're seeing, with the divisive politics, with what I see in working with survivors of all kinds of horrible abuse. I think the one that's the most painful for me to witness is spiritual abuse.
Mm-hmm.
And it's caused me to change a lot of my thoughts and attitudes that I was quite entrenched and comfortable in. And when I saw just the pain and the ugliness of it, it was something that I had to change. I had to embrace it. I had to move out of it. There was, you know, in my faith, God puts that still quiet voice inside of us. And when it's screaming at you that what you're seeing is just plain wrong, what do we do about it? How do we change it? How do we fix it? Do I stay entrenched in my old way of thinking, or do I move and transform and shake off the old, like Miles said, shake off the old and exchange it for something different that fits better? So yeah.
I really like that. Thank you. And I thank you for talking about your own personal change in that. I think that was really, really shows a lot of courage. So thank you. Dad, Eric, let's go with you.
Yeah, that was pretty powerful, Chris. Oh, she's not an admin anymore.
No, I changed her for her.
Oh, good. Thank you. I have a name. Yay.
There's change right in front of us. Right in front of us. Yeah. One of my favorite words is veer course. It's not used very much. It's the idea of changing course, obviously, to veer, and it's usually given a negative connotation. The reality is, on a ship, to veer course is to swing the back end around into the wind. Scariest maneuver you can do. However, if you're heading for the rocks, or you're going to get stuck in the mud, what are your options? And, you know, we give labels. I mean, obviously the examples Chris gave, yes, I think if you took a poll, at least 98.9% of the people would say that what she talked about was a negative change for the world and for certain countries. I wouldn't give 100% anymore. There's too many people out there that would somehow justify it. I think it's important to embrace change by not giving it a good or negative connotation at first. Try to be in it and with it before you determine. Because if you say something as a negative, then you're going to react to it that way. And I have a hard time with change that's forced on me. It's always something where I get stressed and I hold my breath, and you know, and I've been trying not to do that as much over the last decade or so, because it's an evolution. Ultimately, it's an evolution. You may not embrace it as an evolution, but it is by definition.
Okay, thank you. I really appreciate that. Bonnie.
I thought of my work because it was such a big part of my life for so long, because the change happened in multiple phases over several months. But it sticks in my mind because it was so full of uncertainty and fear, and like uncertainty of whether I would even still have a job. But what I did find was that the folks who emerged from that transition the most successful were the people who were the most adaptable, which kind of plays to my strengths in a lot of ways, because there have been lots of chaotic situations in my life, and there was actually a part of me when the COVID crisis started that was like, oh, good, chaos. I know how to handle chaos. And so I kind of just took the opportunity to embrace being flexible and adaptable, because nothing's going to stop changing ever.
Yeah. It's one of the few constants in this world, I think. That and taxes, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, Bonnie. I appreciate that. And then Matt, why did you come up with what you came up with?
It's kind of, I like your dad's explanation, because when I think of veer, I think of a football player that would play that is a veer, where the tailback comes around the back side, which is very similar to the course change. And it is actually kind of a nice play if it works, if it's done correctly. But I actually think of action. Like when I think of change, I think, oh, I have to act now, versus inaction, where when change isn't, if there's no impending change, you don't have to act. You can kind of be settled in what you're doing. And so when I think of change, it's like, okay, now I need to do something. And whether I'm being towed or pulled through the change, or if I'm leading the change, to me it means action. And so I think that's why I said in the beginning, I used to be a little afraid of it, because many times I didn't want to act. I didn't want to have to do something, and so that's where I get that from, is that now when I think of that, I think, okay, now what is the next thing I need to do?
Excellent. And we have Casey, who just joined us. Hey, Casey.
Hello.
Hi. So what I'm going to do, actually, so I wrapped up my 2 required questions with everyone else. So what I might do is just interview Casey separately, so you all don't have to wait and listen if you don't want. You can stay if you want to. But those are my 2 questions.
Casey. Hello.
It's Aunt Chris.
Good to see you.
You too.
Look at
Kind
me.
of.
Yeah, you can hear me.
Yeah.
So the rest of you, though, if you want to leave, you can, and then I'll ask Casey my 2 questions for the interview.
Okay.
Is that all you
That's
need
it?
to premise?
Are we done?
That's all right, Matt. You would know it. That's the 2 questions.
It is, but okay. Thank you, Devin. Nice seeing you.
Thank you, guys. Thank you all.
Nice to see you guys.
Bye,
Nice to meet
Eric.
you all.
Bye, Miles. Bye, Casey.
Bye, Bonnie.
Bye.
Everyone.
Bye. Thanks for thinking of me.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Hey, Casey.
Hey, how's it going?
Good. How are you?
Good. I don't know what I just signed myself up for, but I'm here.
Did Miles send you like a Facebook message?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, he was sweet. So what you signed up for is I have to take a class right now that's so I had to transfer from Concordia University of Portland to Wisconsin, because University of Concordia in Portland closed down.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, like permanently. Yeah. And so part of this transfer requires me to do this seminar class to do some topics that we didn't get in my other degree.
Okay.
To fit their degree, right? Because they have to make sure that we get all the major topics that their other students get, right?
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. And so the topics of this seminar, it's kind of a few, but it's like human resource development, change management, LICI or the Six Sigma and lean system change kind of stuff.
Okay.
Yeah. And so what we're talking about right now is around the idea of change and change management. But in particular, this assignment, I have 2 questions that I need to ask as close to 8 people as I can. And so you're number 7.
Cool.
Yeah. And so it's just 2 questions, and I'll just shoot them out to you, and we'll go from there. Okay.
Sounds good.
Perfect. Thanks, cuz. Let's see here. So given this, we're in a very interesting time to be alive, obviously.
Yeah.
Yeah. Change is everywhere, right?
Yep.
Yep. So when I say the word change, just what do you first think of when I say that word? What comes to mind?
I think of, let's see here. That's a big question.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, I think of your mindset and needing to kind of like readjust what you know about the world and your expectations, and getting ready for something new and grieving what was there.
Interesting. You're the first one to use the word grieving, like a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they've talked about change and transformation and a lot of other things. I don't think anyone else said the word grieving or like a similar word. So I think that's
Interesting.
Yeah. So the follow-up question to that then is like, why do you think that's what first came to your mind? Like, what is it that made you think of that? Like, why do you think that your head went there first?
Well, I think I've had a lot of mindfulness about change lately, with there being so much change right now. And I am not somebody who handles change, especially big changes like this, very well. And I've had to learn over the years, like, what I need when something like this happens. So I guess I've researched the process of change, and so that's why the grieving aspect came up, because I think part of getting comfortable with it is knowing, for me, the process, so that I can understand what I'm going through, and not and being able to really kind of express myself in a healthier way, right? Because I think sometimes if you're grieving something, it can come out in unhealthy ways. So
Yeah, that's deep.
I feel like I'm taking a negative spin on this.
No, I mean, that's part of the point, is that change.
Yeah.
Change is not one thing for anybody. Change is multiple things for everybody, I think. And how you manage change is very important, especially from an organizational perspective. As you being a partner at an agency, you can completely understand the impact that change has on an organizational level.
Right.
But what happens at the organizational level is also happening on the individual level as well, right? And it manifests itself in different ways from the individual up through the organization and back again, right?
Right.
Yeah. But I think, so there's no right answer or wrong answer, right? It's just, it's an answer, right? And I think, so I really like what you added to the conversation.
Good.
Yeah. Well, that was it, actually, were the 2 questions I had to ask everyone.
Oh, nice. Well, that was easy enough.
Yeah, right. And thanks, Miles, for thinking of getting you on last minute, so I had more people to record. I appreciate that.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks. Yeah, he's a good husband for helping you out too.
I agree.